Okay. Thank you for joining in for a very important topic on mental health, especially in the corporate context, how it can really help the organizational success. So before we go there, so let me introduce my our experts today, and we are very honored and thrilled to get very diverse, rich expert with a rich experience. So let me start with Arinda. Arinda, thank you very much for joining in today. So Arinda Shah, she is uh, managing director with the organization which is doing terrific work in the space of mental health. So she's the direct MD for MHFA, which is mental health first aider, if I got the name correct, which is very unique in terms of, because we might have heard of physical first aid, right? Red Cross first aid courses, etc., etc. But I think the psychological first aid or emotional health, mental health first aid is a very important subject that she and her team is educating a lot of people in corporate and in the society as well. So it's a great work they are doing, terrific. So she's a trained social worker, and she's a trained psychotherapist, and she has worked in a variety of organizations, global organizations like WHO, UNICEF, ActionAid, and many, many more. But I'll keep right now our conversation, her introduction to this short. Otherwise, we can spend the whole time in talking about her achievements. She's based out of Chennai. Thank you very much, Arinda, for joining today. We really look forward to hear from you and the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Sanjay, for having me. My pleasure being here.
All right. Then second is my friend Anand. Anand is someone I know for very long. When he started working, we incidentally were in the same organization, HCL, where he started his career. I was also incidentally there. And he has a deep passion for this subject on happiness and mental health. In fact, he has gone ahead and written a few books, and one of them being on happiness at the workplace. And we would like to, so we thought he'll be just the right person who has done huge research on this topic, how happiness and mental health at workplace is important. How does it benefit both organization and the individuals both, right? So we'll look forward, Anand, to hear from you. Thank you very much for joining in. And he's joining from Noida today, right?
Yes, thank you, Sanjay.
All right. And last but not least is my guru, Dr. Rajeshwari. She has been my teacher, and she has a very long and rich career. So again, I'll keep it very brief. So she has a PhD in organizational behavior, I think, right? And she has done MBA, plus she has got various awards international. She has been associated with Harvard Business School as well. And she has been the youngest president for ISTD. Now, you may be wondering why she in mental health. That's her passion. And I've heard stories that she has done so much of mental health support for community at large, especially during the COVID time. She has done tremendous work. So this is an area which is close to her heart, and we'd love to hear from her in terms of mental health, what we hear in the community and how does it impact the organization. So thank you very much, Dr. Shah, for joining in today.
Thank you, Sanjeev.
All right, so guys, before we start the session, a brief introduction about Enabling World, the organization that I represent. And I have with me my friend Sushil Tayal. He's my, I would say, we studied together. So we have a long association, and he's the one who started this organization 10 years back. And that was his passion, which he allowed me to join 4 years back. And we are just really enjoying our time. Thank you, Sushil, for joining in. All right, so if you go to the next slide, Vijay. So we have just completed 10 years. So thank you very much for all your support in different ways, your blessings that we have been able to survive. And, we are blessed to be completing 10 years this year. Look forward to our journey further. What we do is, very briefly on the next slide, we are a boutique organization, and we are focused on HR technology. We are focused on leadership and talent development. We do a bit of HR consulting and advisory, depending on for various organizations, actually, largely in the country and Asia Pacific. Then we do very selective basis outsourcing, and employee well-being actually is last in this row, but is quite important for us. And that's, I would not hesitate to say, is the largest portion of whatever work we do in employee well-being. We do a lot of sensitization program, the counseling services, mindfulness, etc. Different programs that we do, right? So I'll just keep it this short, and then going to the topic. Now let's straight away dive into that. And my request to everyone, please keep it interactive. Put your comment or questions on the chat. I'll be happy to take it as the session goes along. And I would request the experts, don't hesitate. If you see a comment, if you feel like commenting, let's keep your answers in the chat itself. And then through the conversation also we'll do that, right? So so let's begin. So Anand, let me begin with you, if I can, because you have done a lot of work in the corporate and on the well-being is your expertise. First of all, why do you think employee well-being is really important for the organizations? It's an individual issue many a times, right? Why should organization bother about it? What's the business case to think about it and do something about it?
Very large business case, Sanjeev. So the way I would look at it is, let us say, each of us in this call today, each of us are driven by different objectives and purposes. And one of the cornerstones of a sense of well-being is having a sense of purpose. Doing work that is very important to us, and doing it in an area or a skill in which we can progressively get good at. And if we look at that as one dimension or idea of well-being, then trying to match what people are really passionate about and in areas where they can do good work and progressively build their skill, and what we call as the flow, is definitely a big business case, because the more people in the organization are in the state of flow, because they are doing something that is deeply meaningful to them, using their expertise, the more they will do good work, and the more they do good work, the more their organizations will become competitive. So organizations have to really pay attention and care about this aspect of well-being. It really pays back.
So is there a research? I'm intrigued because you do a lot of research, I know, but have you heard somewhere, kind of correlation in scientific terms that, okay, this is the wellness index and this is where the organizational performance is. So are there, direct correlations? Is there a study? I have not studied, but I just want to check with you.
Definitely. So right inside our own organizations, we have something called as EPIC. EPIC is employee passion indicated count, right? Just like your blood counts and so on. So what we try to do is we try to use certain instruments to be able to query people on what is it that moves them a lot. Okay, so, and then we try to ask, like, how much of that they are able to realize in their work at that time. And then we tell the managers that they utilize this idea to be able to relate the work to the individual's deep drivers. So, and over a period of years, even internally, we have seen that teams where this
EPIC
score actually do well, and more importantly, they are intrinsically charged up and happy. So, if you look at discretionary effort, it as one of the
engagement, yeah,
right, and discretionary effort. So, I go beyond what I am asked to do, and versus quiet quitting, right? So. Right. So if I say, when will I go beyond what I am asked to do and be engaged personally because it is deeply meaningful to me, that is when, whatever I'm doing is deeply meaningful to me.
So in a way, I would say just extend that conversation. Very interesting. The EPIC that you mentioned is a way of measuring, say, wellness in an organization, or wellness index in the organization, which is not easy to measure actually. So I'm very interested in knowing a little more as we talk further about this. So basically, employee engagement and employee wellness, they go hand in hand in your way that you're saying, isn't it? So,
and the key thing here is the individualization of this whole framework, right?
Okay.
For everybody, X is the factor that will move their engagement. That's not the idea. Because even in this call, all of us are moved by different things, right? So,
true.
The introduction itself, you had mentioned, each of us is moved by different things. Each of us has pursued. So, why should we not care about what is individually meaningful to the individual? So, out of the different teams that are there, so person A may have team 2, 3, 4, and person B may have a team 1, 7, 8. So, it doesn't matter. But to each is or her own team that moves them. And then go back and say how much of the work one is able to relate that passion driver of theirs in the work that they do. So it is in a way personalizing the workplace to be able to bring out the best in everybody.
I'll come to you for this. And how do we manage when we have thousands, hundreds and thousands of people in the organization and we work mindlessly, not mindlessly, at a neck-breaking speed for the work, so much of pressure. How are we able to maintain that individualization is something I'll come back to you, Anand, in some time, but thank you for this opening remark. Erinda, coming to you, the human being is one, right, as an employee. And our context today is, while mental health is certainly a global context, right? It's a societal issue. But I think organization is an important aspect of this in terms of contributing to this and helping employees both ways, isn't it? So
Yes.
Right now, our focus will be more on the corporate, on the organizations in that context. That's not all, but at least in this short time, we can focus on one element of this and focus little deep dive on this, right? Now, the question to you, Erinda, is, and you do a lot of work with the corporates, I know, in training managers and the leaders on mental health, first aid, etc. You do a lot of work on that. Now, individual is one, right? And I may carry some mental health issues or the stresses from my personal environment and bring to work. Sometimes I may gather it in the organization and carry back to home, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, our understanding is a lot of the mental health issue that we acquire is based on the personal situations, quite a bit, right? What I want to check with you, in what way organizations also contribute to the mental ill health of an individual, right? In what ways organizations do contribute, consciously, unconsciously, knowingly, unknowingly? Your comment on that.
Yeah. Thank you, Sanjeev, for the question. Like you rightly said, so, and Anand sir said that we need to see the individual as an individual, isn't it? And we need to know their perspective from their individual perspective. The understanding of mental health from each individual is different. If you check with them, and we do that when we do mental health first aid training, we say, what mental health means to you? And every answer everyone answers in a different way. So that individualism, we need to recognize, and we need to understand that is the same individual that was in the morning at home and dealt with family, breakfast, and whatever was that to be done. And then came office now to play a role and an obligation that has committed in the office. So we bring our own self as a whole.
As a whole.
We can't leave behind the door what happened at home. It's not possible. I'm a mother of 2 kids, and I can't shut that life of mine every day because I'm at office. I'll receive calls from my daughter and say, Mommy, where is my lunch? So, and as well, call from my family, things that are, this is part of our day-to-day life. And we need to acknowledge that we will transfer whatever happened at home, we'll transfer at office, and whatever happened at office equally, we will transfer at home, because we are human beings. Now, focusing at how workplace contribute to the mental health, I would say that the very first thing that I'd like to say is that the situation of mental health, mental illness at workplace in India, in all organizations, is just a reflection of the status of mental health in our society. It can't be different. We're not saying that is because we have a concentrated population with a certain purpose and goal, but there is huge diversity on the individualism that they bring. The friction and concerns might be a little more higher than what it is in society or at family. So that's where we see the data. We see that every 1 in 7 by studies will experience a mental illness in life, among general public. But at workplace, though we don't yet have very research-based, but the data that are available say that every second one report anxiety and depression due to work-related scenario.
Wow.
So we need to understand that as well, that workplace is not a space that is rather different from what is in the general public when it comes to mental health. Now, how workplace contribute? We need to see mental health not in isolation as just the health. We need to see mental health that is being influenced, and factors that can contribute to the mental health starts from the time we become part of an organization. how we were welcomed, how went the HR interview, how much my rights and my dignity is being respected, what is the space, is the space clean, am I safe, do I have enough, and everything that happened routinely in our day at workplace, and we spend so much time at workplace, has a potential to influence our mental health. So if we have workplaces where the environment is supportive, where the roles are clear, that this is my role, where expectations are spoken, where the communication doesn't have barriers or fears, like if I ask this to my manager, then I may get scolded or I may be considered that I have not enough capacity. So where the culture is based on an empathy, we are there to support one another, where the policies are protective to me, they take care of me. Everything around in a workplace can have the potential to influence my mental health. Where my right, if I am from the diversity group, where my rights are considered and where I'm seen as a human being rather than my choices and my preferences, where bully is not part of conversation, where sexual abuse and harassment not only that are promoted, protected, but as well are addressed appropriately till the end. Those are all elements, and I'm sure Anand and Dr. Rajeshwari will have more and more to add to that, but these are all aspects that influence in the mental health of the person.
And you, Arinda, when you're saying, sorry, just have a question, then I'll let you continue. What you're also indicating is, it's not all the employees, but a segment of employee that, I'm intrigued to, and maybe we'll hear more from Anand and Dr. Rajeshwari as well. It's not same for everyone, right? Because the vulnerability and the chances of, having these kind of triggers, which will lead to mental ill health, they are much more with our diverse population, whether it's a gender diversity or our LGBT, community, they are much more prone to getting this exposed to this than the other employees, right?
Yes. So the risk factors, as where I was going, so the risk factors first are, what is the environment that we have created at the workplace? How is communication and all that I mentioned? And that risk factors can become much larger depending on individual status that we have, as what we carry from home, as where we are financially, our religion, our beliefs, our physical health. So all of us have that individual capacity to handle those stressors and respond in a different way. And that's where we talk with, when we work with HRs, and when they're like, Arinda, we have everything, we are trying everything, but it's like, it's not physical health that you diagnose one person, you give that medicine for that diabetic, and at any time at your workplace, you'll have a set of people that might be well emotionally and mentally. At the same time, you might have a set of people that may be experiencing early sign and symptom, may be experiencing stress, and you may have a set of people who may be experiencing mental illness. So how do you resolve this every day? So we need to sort of be there as a workplace to minimize those risk factors, address conflicts, and as well be able to build a system that supports everybody at whatever level, at whatever stages they are, bounce back, a support system that I feel okay to reach out. I feel okay to tell to my manager. I feel
psychologically
okay
safe. Create a psychological safe place where you feel free to reach out to and get away from stigma. So thank you very much for your initial comments. And I'll come back to you, especially Rinda, the work that you're doing in training managers. I mean, I saw, the work that you're doing, very interesting work on creating the certification or a proper education of managers and employees who can be the first aider for the mental health, right? And that's a concept I want to hear a little more from you, which is the need of the hour. Dr. Rajeshwari, coming to you, you work with a lot of, you have a huge experience in HR. You have trained a lot of HR professionals. You are mentor, guide to the HR leaders. What I want to check with you, having heard so much that the workplace contributes a lot to the mental health or the ill health, if I say, of an employee. The role of a manager, the life of an employee, rests quite a bit on the manager that you have, right? I mean, a large part. Your organization may be anything, but you experience the organizations largely through your manager, isn't it? Hearing this, there's a lot of responsibility on the managers to, one, be sensitive about these issues of mental health, first of all, right? And I don't know how many of them are either trained even to understand and appreciate what kind of mental health issues employees can go through, right? How do you see is industry preparing these managers to deal with this issue?
Well, Sanjeevji, very nicely put up, and my co-panelists have done wonderful, opening remarks. However, let me link 2-3 things as well. For last about 8 years, I am measuring certain things in the Indian scenario. Let me tell you, in last 6 years, there is a 41% rise in anxiety level under 21. There is a 28% rise of anxiety and depression levels below the age of 10.
Below the age of 10.
10. And there are 2% cases known now, tynitots, for aggression and, the connection with the mobile, which the mothers give for, doing their household chores, and they handle this to the children that, okay, you look at the mobile and let me finish my work. So there is an aggression. If you snatch that mobile and then see the aggression coming up and then tantrums coming up. This is one data. Another set of data I would like to tell here, that any mental trauma, any mental well-being issue, 70% is embedded in your childhood. In your childhood, like up to the age of 8, your psychological makeup is made. And at that time, if you have had any of those trauma trigger points, the 70% comes from there. 12 to 18% comes because of the adolescent age and the experiences. And 8 to 20% are related with the relationship related, traumas. So workplace may be a trigger point. Let us understand, what you carry as a baggage is from your early years. When you come to the work, there is another challenge that I have to prove my worth. Here, the baggage is there, the expectations are high, you have your own issues, and then there is a head-on collision. It is inside the person. Every individual faces this. Now, coming to training part of it, I believe that each contact point of a new recruitee should be trained, as Erinda said, first aid of, one should know that if I know, as I told you, like Leena is attending this, and our topic of research is identifying or early detection of behavioral conflicts at the workplace.
Interesting.
And then, work on how a career goes around it. It is very difficult. I know it's a very difficult thing. But, the trigger points are there at the work environment. Let us not deny that. So again, the 5 W and 1 H, that how, what, when, where does it come? Nobody knows. It is very, very individualistic. Now coming to that, each manager, can he or she be trained in dealing with people? At least we can have some people trained in the chain of, people management scheme, where certain people can be trained and can become the first aid help, or they are good at identifying, here is a person who may need some.
So what you're saying is, I want to check with you. First of all, what is your, understanding of the industry practice? Have you seen organizations where people are trained? I know Erinda is in this noble cause of training managers in and out for various corporates, right? So she's focused on, we'll hear more from her, but what is your understanding? And Anand, have you seen, you're a part of a lot of HR associations. Do you see somewhere we are training?
Yes, Sanjeev, a big way, like I'm just giving an example. Sorry for taking the name of the organization.
No, why not?
So see, Bank of Baroda, it's a huge, even IBM, look at Mitra, or, the kind of things Arogya World is doing. Arogya World has got 171 platinum partners where they're giving the support to the industry, NTPC for that matter. Or it is not only the government organization. IBM, Accenture, you name any organization, and they are giving those support systems, but they, the practices vary.
In
because-
pockets, it's not widespread still. So this is one looks like to be one maybe action for all of us, wherever we can influence to really encourage and enable managers, because enable managers are also human beings. There are a lot to do. They have to deliver the projects. They have to manage the people.
Only one liner I will say, Sanjeev ji, there are systems available, but people have taboo around it and they don't want to go there. That's why it is more important that we have a chain of people who can, can give that support system rather than a formal thing, because the taboos would then break, the chains would break then only. Thank you.
Anand, you want to add to this?
Yeah, Sandeep. Actually, organizations, at least large organizations, have an employee assistance
program,
helpline that they can call to. They can call along with their family members, etc., etc. That is from a mental health perspective. Sometimes we tell managers to be able to spot some signs and then encourage employees to refer to those programs, because not everybody is able to understand and add value. So to even provide emotional first aid or mental health first aid is not everybody's cup of tea. One will have to have some training.
Yeah, so, I'll tell you on EAP, sorry to interrupt you, but we work with a lot of organizations, right, on emotional well-being, training and support. Most of the organizations, they come and say the adoption of that service is very poor, and they try a lot to educate people, create awareness, but still there's a taboo around, stigma around. And so unless we train managers to spot those behaviors and identify, because how many people who are already stressed, they will take the phone and go to EAP service, say, hey, I'm facing this problem. That kind of awareness is very low today in India, especially, right? So
I think you said it very right. And that is where this whole idea of mental health and the workplace has to be reframed. So it cannot be that, you are sick or you are not sick, right? That's not like Irinda said, it's not like physical health, diabetes, you favor medicine and so on. So there is a continuum, right? So at one end of the continuum, somebody is paranoid, anxious, right, agitated, and therefore unable to perform or unable to keep their life together. So that is one end of the spectrum. At the other end of the spectrum is thriving, feeling connected, feeling deeply meaningful, wanting to get up in the. So this idea of mental health and engagement, right? There is a continuum between them. And by breaking that continuum and positioning it as if you are unwell, you go, right? You are actually already created a barrier for people to make use of those services. So let's take a different example. So one of the things that we tried to do was we tried and said that, there are these managerial folks. You have been with IBM.
When you say we, means HCL you're talking about.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you have been with IBM, so you would really relate to that. There are these managerial folks and there are these technical folks, right? The technical folks require a different kind of environment, right? Their sort of light at the end of the tunnel is very different. So we try to ask ourselves, right? When is the time these technical folks will get into flow? The idea of the flow. What should they be doing to get into flow? The moment you look at it that way and say that, I had last 1 month. Yesterday was a very, very productive day, right? Day before yesterday was not a very productive day, let's say. And even in our own life, each day is different from the other.
Yeah.
So what went right? Suppose you are able to reframe that whole question in terms of how can every day be my best day.
Best day.
And if you reframe it like that and also focus on the thriving aspect of it, not only about getting well from being sick, then this taboo will go away. So, what some of the folks call as positive psychology, not only negative psychology. Don't only say, then there is a taboo, right? That's the thing. But at the same time, I want to, second what Dr. Rajeshwari said, right? A lot of resolution of these dilemmas have got to do with early upbringing and experiences and perspectives that were formed in early lives without too much of processing. Right? And to be able to reprocess that is equally important. So it's not that, by painting a coat of yellow, somebody will become happy, right? That's not, some deep work is required actually. So there you have to go individual and almost like psychoanalysis. You have to go to psychoanalysis to be able to do that. But at the same time, for a lot of us in an organization, everybody is okay. They are able to work. They are operating. They are not sick exactly, right? But even for those individuals, one has to take that away from saying that, okay, you are not sick, but how can you thrive? And the moment we are able to change and reframe this conversation from coming out of mental ill health to thriving, then we will have dismantled that taboo about calling EAP and asking for help and so on. So, and at the same time, EAPs have to go back and say, and that's the job of manager, and say, how can I make every day like yesterday, which was a great day for you?
Great point. I think I like the concept of basically preventive health you're talking about, and concept of thriving. Why to even reach that stage of sickness, right? That's a last stage. We don't have to wait for someone to reach that stage. Get it early is what you're saying. So training of the managers.
And thriving is, it's not that it is not the absence of sickness. It is, it is a zest, it's a positive engagement with the world. It's operating with a sense of purpose, enjoying deep relationships with others.
True.
Right?
So as you say, health is.
I come with one point that, sorry to say that in India, everybody becomes a writer. They would start giving advices.
Unsolicited, yes.
It comes with an authenticity of training. Then only, otherwise everybody would start doing this, and that then there is another mess we are going to create.
No, we do a lot of program. You're right, and I would, Arinda, come to you because you are training a lot of managers and leaders in the corporate exactly on the topic that Anand is alluding to, or Dr. Rajeshwari has said. So we'd like to hear from you. How is it done? What are some success stories in very brief, but want to hear from you and very crisp, because we have limited time. I want to really, because today we'll not talk about problems alone. We'll also talk about what can we do, what is happening, what are some, give me some silver lining, ray of hope, Arinda.
Yeah, thank you, Sanjeev. So yeah, that's right, and it's great that Rajeshwari and Anand brought the conversation on prevention, because that's what Mental Health First Aid is about. Mental Health First Aid is an international program which is developed 20 years back in Australia, and it is with the purpose and focus was built to educate public on mental health. Just like you said in the beginning, just like you train in physical first aid, you as well can train in mental health first aid. So the training has been, for 20 years, 5 million plus people trained across the world. So the foundation of the training actually is strong because it's based on research. It's been done with research with participation of users, carers, public, professionals, non-professionals, on what is the best way to support someone to provide first aid in case of mental health. So Mental Health First Aid India is the only license holder of this program in our country. And we had the obligation as well to adapt and acculturate to Indian culture. So there is a manual where we give thorough information of what is mental health status in our country, from the addressing concerns, from who is a professional in mental health. Public today knows only a counselor and psychiatrist, but actually there are more professions. What is their education? Today, a counselor can have even 2 weeks training, but he or she cannot do psychotherapy. Correct. Who is a psychiatrist? Who are the licensing body? All this thorough information is being trained. Education about what is my right in our country about mental health. What are the policies? What are the services? So public is eager to understand where they stand when it comes to mental health.
And these are short courses, right? They are not very long courses.
No, the Mental Health First Aid is a standard course. So either you take it in UK or in India or in Australia, it is a 12-hour standard course. Like I heard one of you said that, I'm sorry, I don't remember now, that, yeah, Anand said that not everybody has the capacity to provide that first aid. So it needs to be given in a rigorous manner in order for a lay person whose mental health or psychology is not topic to be well equipped enough to provide support to someone close to them, isn't it? But as well, at the same time, keep themselves safe. Yeah? Even we as psychotherapists or mental health professionals cannot do more than 45 minutes and more than 3 sessions in a day. Imagine a first aider say, okay, I'm a first aider, and I line up people listening endlessly 2 hours and 3 hours. So the first aid is given in a rigorous manner and is taught where the role start, where the role end. It helps mainly with the prevention and early help seeking.
So how many want to just take a dipstick?
Yes.
How many we have a country of billions, people. Yes. how many people you think would be trained today on mental health first aid?
Well, we have a larger, I don't want to call it appetite, but we are a larger interest and openness to learn mental health first aid as before COVID. But definitely the larger staker are the corporates, and we are closely working. Initially we started working with corporates who had already taken mental health first aid for their teams in other countries. They had seen the impact, they had seen the effectiveness, and they say, okay, we want mental health first aid, because a mental health first aid training, not only that give the right knowledge and resolve all the stigma that are the invisible barriers towards EAP or help seeking or any help that is available, but at the same time, it builds that simple confidence and it's like that, okay, I see Erinda is not the usual her, but I do not misinterpret, like, oh, okay, she's lost interest, or she's hyperventilating, or so that's where the problem happened, that what we see, because we don't know what mental health and mental illness is, we sort of tag names and give names, which is another aspect that we teach in mental health first aid. Language that we use is absolutely very important. Not only that it tells our opinion and our state of thoughts and attitudes to colleagues and people around us, but at the same time influences in people who listens, like my colleague, my team, if they hear me speaking in a stigmatized manner, they'll never come to me. They say, okay, Erinda is not the right person. But if I talk in an empathetic manner, that, hey, suicide is quite common, but it's not normal, and we can resolve, we can reach to one another, then what we do, we create channels, we create bridges. Okay, I'll talk to Erinda a little later. She seems not to misunderstand having suicidal ideation. So either we isolate people or we create some communication. So language is very, very powerful, and we discussed that quite thoroughly. On the training.
What I'm checking with you is absolutely we understand, and that's a great thing. I mean, great knowledge that I'm carrying here, that there are forums available with, as a family, as a corporate, we can train people at a basic level, and we need that basic level of awareness. But my suspicion would be that today the number of such people who are trained to be the first aider itself would be minuscule today, right? I mean, as a large nation, we still have a huge scope to cover. Absolutely. I mean, a lot can be done around this, isn't it? Just a beginning, because I mean, amongst us, how many people would even know about that? There is a particular course available like mental health first aid. Many of us may not even know about it, isn't it? Within this group, we are all supposed to be aware of mental health more than others, but still our knowledge is limited. So I think there's a lot. So you're doing a great job on that. Now, Anand, want to check with you. Thank you for this. Anand, to check with you, you know, it's a little tricky question, but I just still want to ask in your view. When we, in earlier days, at least I remember, when you hire someone, you do a health checkup, right? If health is so important, physical health and mental well-being is so important for productivity at the workplace, pure business point of view, when I screen a candidate for the health, right? Physical health, I send him to a doctor, his BP, etc., his diabetes level is okay, etc. Are there some practices where we check, and especially for sensitive roles, critical roles, just like being the pilot, or where, you know, it's a very critical role where the mental health, your stability is very important, right, for you to perform that job? Are you hearing some practices? You're a part of a lot of HR organizations, you hear, and Dr. Rajeshri, you work with a lot of PSUs as well. So I want to hear from both of you. Are there some practices to screen people before? For them?
So I think Dr. Rajeshri will be able to add more, and she herself is on the panel checking these very aspects.
I see.
Yeah, so she'll be able to add more. So Sanjeev, in the private sector, right, and where we are in a war for talent, and we have to recruit in large numbers and so on and so forth. The HR interview was supposed to do this, Sanjeev. At the end of the day, that is what it was for, right? We do have 2 rounds of technical interview and 1 round of HR interview. And the 1 round of HR interview was supposedly there to figure out any extreme erratic things that are there, you know. I remember doing this and filtering out people and figuring out, etc. But again, one has to do it in a very appropriate fashion. We cannot.
And how many? I mean, I can take courage to say this. I don't know how many of our HR professionals even are trained to assess any mental health issue, because they may be checking, and I have experience in HR. I mean, as you know, they will be checking the cultural fit to the organization, maybe salary or the skill level, etc., salary negotiation. But how many of us are even trained? So that brings another point. As first aider, HR should be the first, and the manager should be trained on the being the first aider, on the mental health first aider. I think that's a call to action I can particularly call out.
100%, Sanjeev. See, actually, like we were discussing in the beginning, right? So the foundations of HR, right? If you look at the foundations of HR, psychology is one of the foundations of HR.
Correct.
Yes.
But we have moved away from that foundation in the way we read HR today, or learn and pick up, and gone into something more esoteric techniques and so on. And if you are a MSW HR like you are, it will come. Yeah, it will come very naturally to you, because that is it's built on that foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas if you are a MBA HR, unless you take those courses and are invested personally, you may not really pay attention to that. So I think that's that's where we have lost the connection.
But we need to rebuild that connection. So, Dr. Rajeshwari, if I can ask you, without taking name, right, of the PSU, because we need to be sensitive about the audience we are talking about, but want to really hear from you, how is this screening used? And I'm mindful that we should give equal opportunity to people who are deserving, right? Our job is to fit them to the right job and not just keep the problem away, because that way we are maybe increasing the problem, right? Mental health issue.
Sanjeev, first of all, pre-recruitment, let me tell you, 10% is rational and 90% is situational. The behavioral triggers are 90% situational. So when they are coming for an interview, the framework of the mind may be totally different than what would be their workplace behavior. Let me tell you that the authenticity of the tools would be written on a question mark. I would be very honest with that. And I, being psychodynamic analyst at the interviews, I have seen that, you can actually read them through while they are talking, the voice thrust, their, the way they talk, the way their body languages are. You can guess certain things pretty well if you are trained in a psychodynamic analysis, path. Other things are, critical behavioral assessments are there, situational analysis are there. But, again, it all depends, because suppose I meet one person who is a bipolar. Okay. Oh. Now, bipolar person, when he is giving an interview, is happy, he's in a positive frame of mind. What happens if he finds a trigger in the workplace and he is absolutely toxic? Absolutely toxic. Then what happens? So all your pre-recruitment things would go, because when you checked him, he was in a positive framework of mind. But when he performs or somewhere in a critical situation, he is totally different person. So, there is no foolproof system to do that. But yeah, talking about, the kind of early detections, if we can do, definitely it is going to help. Because again, there are 2 to 3 stages. Small, 10 to 20%, or then again 40% or more, or whether somebody is actually going towards mental illness. As I think Erinda said, that, there are certain people who would have just small irritation, then maybe it adds to anxiety, then it goes into depression, then it goes into next level. Like that, you can find out, the earliest you find, the better you can help. Because, in India, I would like to tell you, there are these 5 levels of gap. Knowledge gap is there. Awareness gap is there. Awareness gap. Third is the perceptiveness of the people. Then the skill to handle gap is there. And last but not least, the organizational support gap is there.
Absolutely. Wow. So that's a very nice a framework to remember. Would you repeat that once again?
Sure. So the gaps are knowledge gap. People have no knowledge about it. Second is the awareness gap for the person and for anybody else. Third is the perceptiveness gap, because the people think that anybody has got an anxiety and disorder is, that they label it like a pagal hai, ye kaam nahi kar sakta. So that, we have to come out of that taboo. Then perceptiveness gap ke baad mein, it is the skill gap to handle such cases. And fourth is, of course, the support system which organization or family or society or a nation can provide. This entire support systems we have to develop. Yeah,
All
so
right.
there is a gap in that.
All right. So, Rinta, coming to you, in my observation, a lot of discussion that we do, even if an employee is aware that he or she has an issue, or manager spots that, okay, Sanjeev is there, he's facing some issue. There's a stigma. The biggest barrier for people to reach and seek help is the stigma at the workplace, right? That seems to be one of the biggest, barrier actually. And some of the session, maybe this session is helping in some way, humble attempt, maybe one step to remove that stigma away from this. And that's what all of us should do. In your experience of working with a lot of corporates in this space, give us some insights on what really works to remove the stigma. I know the problem, so let's not talk about the problem, but what really works to remove the stigma? Straight question, very crisp answer.
Yeah, education. Addressing the first gap, as ma'am said, education and awareness. And not, I mean, the ideas, we talk in our training about stigma because it's the largest barrier. But we want to simplify that stigma did not come from somewhere. We all contributed every time, but for years together. And we need to sort of come to the term or accept that, okay, COVID became the positive flip of side of the COVID was bringing mental health on top. And let's make good use of it. But so because it came a topic in the agenda, suddenly, but not everybody is prepared to talk about it, isn't it? You need to give time people to mature about it. How do you give that time? By giving knowledge and awareness. This is, I guess, and I think the very first step when you start addressing stigma. It exists everywhere, in family, in society, and actually, what we do educate is it starts with me. Everybody should say it starts with me. If I open conversation at my home and I talk to my children about physical health and mental health and their emotions, I have started my job or my role in reducing stigma. The same at workplace. As a manager, I'm not a professional in mental health, but I can start talking with the knowledge that I've gotten as a mental health first aider. I can open that conversation.
Sure.
That's where stigma, it's an attitude and behavior. That's where mental health first aid plays a role. Knowledge, attitudes, behavior. Stigma can be addressed by knowledge and conversation. It cannot be changing tomorrow.
True.
It needs time, contribution.
No, thank you for that. Absolutely. Anand, coming to you, any good practices that you have heard? I mean, you may not take the name, you may take the name if you feel comfortable. Any good practice? Because I have seen a lot of companies talking about awareness. Still, we feel we are where we were, right? I mean, maybe we are inch ahead, but still not enough. Any good practices that we all can learn from? And this has worked in my view. And in the chat, people can comment on in case you know of any powerful practice where this communication awareness had a huge impact in the organization. Over to you.
Yeah, so Sanjeev, actually, the soundness of the practice or the efficacy of the practice depends on the stage of evolution of the system or organization.
Okay.
So when there is, for example, huge pushback or stigma around, let us say, mental health, one of the things that could work is if the topmost people in the organization are able to freely talk about it and say, okay, I went through this, I got treated and I became well. And here I am running the company or running this division and so on and so forth. So when they see leaders who have arrived, right, talking about it without stigma in a matter of fact manner, that will work when the system is in a very unevolved kind of state. So what you call as practices, there is no best practice for. So one best practice will not apply to every situation. It can become counterproductive. So depending on where we are in the whole scheme of things. So for example, if there is a lot of awareness and acceptance, then you might talk about the rate at which this occurs in different parts of the world or this profession or that, and what do people do, etc. So depending on the maturity, the right practice has to be introduced to make the journey from where we are stigmatizing mental health to where we are embracing mental health and making it the center of productivity and performance.
Okay. There was another movement where some of the celebrities, they started talking about it. I think there was a campaign like Padukone, Deepika Padukone, and I think there was a hashtag, I'm not ashamed, right?
Right.
But I'm facing depression. It was a huge, it left a lot of impact, and celebrities did contribute a big way. Virat Kohli did share, if I know, that he was facing the depression. He felt very lonely at one point of time, even as a captain of India. And he was the hero for millions of youth in the country.
Right.
And he said, I was facing loneliness and depression at that stage. So I think taking that clue, maybe as leaders, as seniors or the managers in the organization, if they talk about it, that can be very effective. And that is one takeaway I'm saying, that, hey, was facing this issue. I have no shame in accepting that and no shame in seeking help. I think that will be most effective, besides various other things that we are doing.
That's right.
Exactly. And Dr. Rajeshwari, are you also hearing any such good practice on communication?
Yes, Sanjeev, of course, celebrity endorsement, as you said, it is one of them. But also, I know that the Enneagram Academy of India is connecting something which is coaching, mentoring, and mental well-being together, which they call kind of a coach support mental well-being. So we are doing this kind of work where, you can assess a kind of personality type and the type of vulnerability which they may have, depending on your personality type, which kind of mental well-being issues you may have, you may be vulnerable towards. And then it can be, it helps in early detection of things. Definitely it has helped. If I'm correct, like almost around 87 people, I personally found them that they said that, yeah, this really helped, that I was unaware, but this is the level that I am now working on. So there are systems available, Sanjeev.
All right. Arinda, coming to you, I wanted to check with you, because as you mentioned, you bring your whole, right, as a person to the organization. You go home. I mean, you're one person. You can't cut person Arinda into two pieces. This is official, this is personal, right? Now, there are times, and it's a complex situation, right? A person is dealing. It could be official, it could be personal. There are times that, we as managers or as HR feel like involving families when we see a disturbing trend, right? And it's a pretty sensitive issue from the privacy point of view, from sensitivity point of view. Want to check with you, how do you, when you train managers, what is your guidance? Where to involve family, when not to involve family, who should do? I mean, so there seems to be some very individual judgment we all take, right? Oh, let's do it. I mean, there's no rule book kind of thing, guidance. Would you like to give some guidance to all of us that if there are situations, how should we handle this? Being very sensitive subject, actually.
Okay, so just a clarification, Sanjeev, you mean their own families or engaging with their teams?
No, their families. When I'm saying, suppose, my issue was, the question was that if we spot as HR, as manager, that there is an employee, he or she is facing an issue and we should involve family, right? Sometimes it reaches that stage where you need to sensitize them. Who should do? It's a sensitive subject. How do we handle that?
Okay, Sanjeev, yes, thanks a lot. Just to clarify that. When we teach mental health first aid managers as mental health first aiders, we do teach how to maintain the confidentiality, which is very, very important, but at the same time, how to break it when there is especially crisis. Crisis in our country, especially suicide, is very, very high. And is a matter that we talk very detailedly, because just because we can't see those suicide ideation, many of us think that change your mind, go for a movie, you don't have reasons to think negatively, forget about it. Actually, we teach that is an emergency, you need to be with the person right there. So, and the reaction, especially at workplace, is like calling someone, calling their family. Now, in discussion that we do when we teach how to handle the situation is that we need to respectfully ask the person, though he or she might be in distress, is that who is that person that they would like to call, or that they would like us to bring in wherever they are, wherever, whether at workplace or somewhere. Why? Because it's very important. We may think family might be the person that they have to call, but maybe family might be a source of stress, and that might not be the right person to bring in the conversation. Ever, never call family or somebody else behind the shoulder of the person that you are trying to support. But always ask what could be, or who can be there. Maybe your doctor, maybe your counselor, maybe a neighbor, maybe your friend, maybe another colleague, or maybe a HR, whoever that is. Sort the discussion with the person and then call the person. When it comes to family, as I said, for any case, not even crisis, any other case, maybe a depression, it is reflecting as a low productivity. Not necessarily we have to go and investigate behind the person's shoulder and say, like, what's going on at your home because Erinda is not being productive, or she's not the same. We have to have as a first aid or conversation with the person, how the person is feeling, how they are doing, with their permission.
With their permission, but
with their permission, with them. And the conversation builds like that. Have you spoken? Have you told this to anyone in your family? Have you shared what you are thinking and feeling with them? If they say no, they will not understand. That's the stress. So we'll have to, okay, what do you think are the resources that can be helpful to you right now? But if you say no, I've not said, I feel ashamed. So how do you think, how about talking to your wife, or how about talking to your partner? It's better to talk rather than just assume that what he or she might be saying.
So what you're saying is essentially seek, consent of the person, respect that before talk. But my personal view is there could be situations where person is not in a mental state even to guide, right? So it could be judgment, and sometimes the time is critical that time.
I agree with you.
So sometimes we as HR, I have a situation where I have gone and spoken to the family that we sense urgency and danger. Person is on maybe has a suicidal tendency or something like that. And I think he or she needs help. Sometimes we take a judgment in the spur of the moment. Your guidance is as much as possible, take consent is the advice that you're giving. Anand, yes. Are you seeing any other situation? You have also worked in corporate and you work with a lot of HR. Any different advice? It's a very sensitive subject, and on the feet, you have to take a decision sometimes.
No, definitely, Sanjeev. And I think I would go with what Erinda says, because it is not useful to assume that the family will be supportive, right? And if we call them, it may aggravate the situation. So we have to judge first whether that family or that resource person is going to solve the problem or aggravate the problem. So that is
all right.
So that is one. However, in times we have taken a judgment, right? Several years ago, I know an individual who was very proud of her skills, in terms of this thing, and she couldn't solve a particular program or do a particular program. So suddenly we realized that for 2 days that person has not got up from her chair, and she's saying that she won't get up till she sort of solves that stuff. And at that time, we did tell it's okay, and you are a good programmer, no problem. But then we had to call that person's brother to be able to help in this matter.
Yeah, I think it's a sensitive subject. We take your advice that as much as possible, take the consent, and so that's what your advice is, right, Erinda?
Yeah, if I may add something here as well, we inform and we train managers that, like, build your protocols in case of crisis. So not everybody would know how to behave in a certain moment. Having protocols as how a first aider should follow certain terms, and informing, like, okay, we have this opportunity. We have your emergency number from family. We have your doctor. We have the HR. We have the EAP. So what do you think would be best? Okay. So engaging the person, and I do agree when the person is unable to take decisions, especially in crisis of psychosis, always the involuntary treatment protocol should be there. And there is an act about it, the way how it is. That's what we educate workplaces. Workplaces must be knowing how these processes are done, and we teach those through mental health first aid. But always the relationship and the action should be taken in a dignified manner, without going behind and assuming, questioning. Trust will be lost, for sure.
No, I think that's a great advice, and I'm sure a lot of us would have that dilemma in our mind because we are doing in the interest of the employee concerned, but we may doing bit damage, sometimes without in this unawareness. So I think I can go on. This is such an interesting subject, and the insight that we are getting is huge, but we are respectful of the time that we had set up for this. There are a couple of announcements we need to make. There are some World Mental Health Day is coming up on 10th October, as all of us know. Is a great opportunity for all of us to, restate this importance of mental health at the workplace, right? We do, as part of Enabling World, offer some programs in case anyone is interested. There's a link in the chat. If you want, you can talk to us. And then there are other programs coming up, on Children's Day, on parenting. Actually, as you mentioned, a lot of Dr. Rajeshri said, parenting, actually, interestingly, a lot of corporates are getting into parenting issue because today we stay all by ourselves, right? Nuclear families, and we don't know what parenting is. Earlier, we had the ammas and nannies at home to take care, but today we are all by ourselves. So parenting is an important topic that corporates deal with. And Men's Day, not to forget, men also have issues, mental health issue. In fact, I was reading a statistics, the suicide rate in men is 3 times that of women, which is something that I did not know till last year. So we must celebrate Men's Day, especially the health, men's health, right? So it's coming up in November. We do some programs around that. The team will trigger a survey for this session, and we'll be here for a few more minutes. If you can, panelists, if you can stay for maybe 4-5 minutes, formally this session will close, and there'll be a survey that will be sent to everyone. Please give a candid feedback. How did you enjoy it? Got insights, learning out of this session? And before we go to all the panelists, one piece of advice, if Anand, you have to give in one line to, I would say, the managers or the HR, the corporate world that we represent today, one piece of advice to improve the mental health at the workplace. One piece of advice, one sentence.
So I think one word would be acknowledgement. Sanjeev. So acknowledge, your own emotions to yourself. Acknowledge emotions of other team members with each other. So acknowledgement goes a long way in building the right foundations.
Okay. And Arinda, if I were to ask you, I know it's a tough thing to ask you, one sentence, one piece of advice.
To managers, I would say make your staff an alliance in your journey of setting the mental well-being at your workplace. So unless staff is your allies, it will be difficult to implement whatever you plan.
Excellent. Dr. Rajeshri, your last words.
So I have already written, ask a scoop is the model. Be aware of yourself, about your emotion, self-role assessment, that what is my role in it, know your trigger points, acknowledge that I have a problem, stop overthinking, concentrate and breathe, observe self, open up to my family, friends or counselor, and practice well-being. So it's a ask a scoop model.
This is typical of a professor, right? They will create a framework out of everything, but it is so easy to remember. I really appreciate you use few acronyms. I made a note of those 5 levels, and this is a very interesting concept you bring. So I think, guys, I really enjoyed. I learned a lot in this session, genuinely, I must say. And it's such an important topic. I'm taking away a lot of, takeaways and learnings out of this. I'm sure all of us would have. And I can't thank enough to Arinda, Anand, you, and Dr. Rajeshri. And this audience was so aware and engaged. There was a parallel session running almost on the chat, I must say. So thank you, thank you everyone for that. And we will share this recording of this session with everyone on our YouTube channel. Reach out to us in case you are interested, in case we don't send you. So it will be there on our YouTube channel. So thank you very much, and stay safe, and let's all create a healthier workplace, wherever we are in our contribution, whether education, awareness, in whatever way we can, it is worth doing it actually. So stay safe, and thank you everyone. Bye-bye.